This level probably won and hashtag 039, be here in a few months. And I think that and hashtag 039 is more important because, in the end, if yields start to fall because inflation is easing or the job market is a little weaker than expected, it really brings the Fed back into focus. Which brings me to my last point, it and hashtag 039, not good to be where returns are right now. It doesn't and hashtag 039, really upset the markets, but I don't and hashtag 039, think rates are going up either. In the coming months, small caps have not lived up to expectations. That is, I believe those names have been pulled under the rug a few times. That and hashtag 039, why I think buyers will be very careful. But for us, I think the roadmap for 2025 still shows that stocks will have a lot more chances to grow. This is because we are getting a new government that is pro-business, which will boost CEO confidence. It and hashtag 039, pretty clear now, I saw it in both of the most recent ISM reports. That will be a better place for deals, though. So, while small caps have been big losers for the last 10 years, I think this 10-year underperformance by the S&P wink with tongue sticking out is the worst in almost 100 years. That makes it the second only to 1998. Another thing is that small caps are still much more attractively priced. The median PE is about 11 times, which is almost 7.7 times less than the S&P wink with tongue sticking out. Okay. John, it and hashtag 039, been hard to have too many small caps, but I think they and hashtag 039, work in 2025. Looking at Nvidia. Nvidia was taken off a list of the best. Let and hashtag 039, talk about this. For sure, we and hashtag 039, keeping an eye on Nvidia shares as a key driver. I just checked, and it and hashtag 039, down about 2% right now. The chip maker has been in a few news stories. Obviously, the Biden administration laid out the rules yesterday that would limit U.S. exports of AI chips to more than 120 other countries. China. That and hashtag 039, why we know China already has to follow strict rules. Based on what we and hashtag 039, heard from analysts, Citi did take down its end quote, catalyst watch end quote, on Nvidia because of the chance of Biden regulation. Citi took away the positive trigger watch that had been on shares for 90 days, but they kept a buy rating on the shares. The price goal is $175. They do say that the new rules 1 and hashtag 039, have any immediate effects because they 1 and hashtag 039, be put into place for 120 days. But did say that it and hashtag 039, a longer-term threat to Nvidia and hashtag 039, sales in the data center. At the same time, JP Morgan said again that Nvidia was too big after meeting with Nvidia managers at the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. The healthcare vertical business is expected to bring in more than $1 billion a year in recurring revenues in fiscal year 2026, making it one of the most important vertical market groups in Nvidia and hashtag 039, data center business. And it and hashtag 039, not often that we talk about Nvidia in terms of healthcare. When asked about other chip names that will do better than Nvidia this year, Jeffries pointed out Broadcom and Marvell Technology. He said, end quote, we continue to like Nvidia on the precipice of the Blackwell ramp, but we see more upside in Broadcom and Marvell as they ride the wave of rising demand for custom silicon, end quote. In addition to the activity among analysts, news came out yesterday that Nvidia and hashtag 039, Blackwell chips are having problems with overheating and connectivity that are affecting some of the company and hashtag 039, biggest users. The information also says that Alphabet, Google, Microsoft, and Meta have all made orders with Blackwell worth at least $10 billion. But there have been delays. There are a lot of news stories about Nvidia today, but even though experts are still very positive on the stock, it and hashtag 039, not doing much to help sales. They and hashtag 039, down about 2%, and they and hashtag 039, down about 5% so far in 2025. Yes. You also talked about Citi and this story. but they kept the buy rating and set a goal price of $175. Many people would be glad to see 175 on this stock that went from being really welcome it and hashtag 039. Great to see you again, thanks a lot Caroline was a year ago, she and hashtag 039. Still an amazing performer. She and hashtag 039. Up 138%, so if you and hashtag 039, V been a video shareholder, you haven and hashtag 039, T done badly. Also, Jensen Huang is said to have traveled to China this week, so maybe we and hashtag 039, LLC some news there too. Stay tuned for that story. Palantir changes things for us. That would be George Silas, Senior Markets Reporter. Please tell us all about what and hashtag 039 been going on with this real winner of 2024. Nicola, it and hashtag 039 clear that it and hashtag 039 been a real hit for the past 52 weeks. The stock price has gone up 300%, and Palantir and hashtag 039 name has become very associated with the types of software, decision analytics, predictive analytics, and artificial intelligence that they and hashtag 039 now offering to the private sector as well as the DoD, which is one of their biggest customers. In a perfect world, we know that this name has been very popular with both consumers and retailers. However, the company has done a great job over the last few years to boost sales growth, which is still in the high 20% to low 30% range on the whole. Overall, the company has become profitable over the past few years, and the stock has gone up a lot in the past year. However, if you look at the price action over the last 3 weeks, it and hashtag 039 down about 25% from its December Christmas Eve highs of around $86. This means that even though the company is profitable, there are still some evaluation concerns. There have always been these concerns as the stock has been going up, but there and hashtag 039 a lot of momentum in the name. So I think a lot of analysts were afraid to get ahead of that. But now we and hashtag 039 starting to see some of them re-evaluate Palantir and hashtag 039 prospects from a valuation point of view. Maybe not from a technology or a dominant player in the AI space point of view, but Jefferies is saying still. A few weeks ago, they were selling at over 50 times sales and even 150 times free cash flow. Now, the stock price has gone down and the enterprise value to sales ratios are going down. Jefferson still doesn't and hashtag 039, like the name and wants it to go down to $28. Furthermore, it and hashtag 039 not always the case, as I already said. Kind of a hit on the technology or the business. It all comes down to how much people want to make money, which shows up in the price action. There has been a 20% or more move in the stock price in the last few weeks, but it is still selling at 170 times this year and hashtag 039 earnings and 135 times earnings in 2025. In a perfect world, it and hashtag 039 still expensive, even though it and hashtag 039 about 25% less than its high point. Okay, George. Thanks for everything. This goes back up because of the example deal. That and hashtag 039 the thing. Nicole, there and hashtag 039 a chance that the markets will keep going down in the short term, but there may be a sudden rise as we head towards the end of the month. So it and hashtag 039 possible that Palantir will get better from here. But I think it might stop moving, especially since the stock is selling below its 20-day moving average, which is around $72. We and hashtag 039 going to play the short-term bearish trend and give it some wiggle room to let the stock go back to that $72 area. To do this, I and hashtag 039 am going to sell a February 72 to 75 bear call spread, which means we and hashtag 039 reselling 72 and buying 75, and we and hashtag 039 LL gets 75 cents back. The goal between now and expiration in 38 days is for the stock to stay below 72. That level is possible. It might be able to get the 73 and a quarter. That and hashtag 039 when you break even. But I think it might stop as we move out of January and into February, when I think the markets will be closed for more than a week. Okay, George. It and hashtag 039, great to see you. Thanks. Have fun at Palantir.